of my grandfather's previous generation, his father was a postal delivery man who worked out of the post office on the northeast corner of High and Fifth Avenue. For the longest time, it was a Shell station, and now it's called Out of the Closet, I think. His other uncle was Jack, the fireman. He had an uncle that moved on the east side of Columbus. Most of them stayed north, but Uncle Matthew moved to the east side and had some kids that eventually married into some Bexley people. But their name is like Smith. I mean, their name is so common. But I did find, thanks to Susan Gruber, that the Grubers are cousins to us by virtue of Matthew Welsh. And then he had one uncle that was a bartender, maybe more than one, but there was a notorious character named Pat Murnane that was colorful, and he owned gambling casinos that he had to pay off the cops to keep protected. And he owned a bunch of bars, and that uncle was a bartender for one of his bars. Pat Murnane married a woman named Grace. Grace, I used to know her last name. Anyway, Grace was a madame, and she owned some houses of ill repute.
Oh, these are Pat and Gracie.
Pat and Gracie, exactly.
Okay.
Pat and Gracie's, that's their origin story. This might be him. I don't know, it's a red car.
I got a text that they were still en route, so.
Beckenstowe, Grace Beckenstowe. So Pat owned a horse farm because, like a lot of gamblers, he liked the horses. And the horse farm was where Graceland Shopping Center is now. And urban legend has it that the original developer of shopping centers, Don Casto the First, right here in Columbus, tried to buy that land because he was a visionary and knew one day there would need to be shopping there, and because this is like the north end of Clintonville, and so supposedly the deal was, I'll sell it to you as long as it remains named after my wife, Grace. There isn't a lot of documentation of that, so we don't know for sure.
So it was called Graceland. I never made that connection.
It was actually, he called it the Graceland Stock Farm. Now keep in mind, this is the 1920s, 1930s. So that was pretty rural out there.
Yeah, wow.
But you still had High Street. I mean, the road was still there. Yeah. So, you know, my family is intertwined with that kind of color because that probably said a lot about Columbus back then. Another thing, if you can picture it now, we're a little young, but where the convention center sits was Union Station.
I have a question about that.
And Union Station, keep in mind, this is the capital city, the center of Ohio. Union Station was a pretty busy and important place, and it was very, very close to where my grandfather grew up. And he always had that combined with his particular job at Goodrich. He always had a love for railroads. At Goodrich, he was a transportation manager. So all these tires that were made in Akron were being shipped all over the country and all over the world, really. And so back then, you used trucks to some extent, but primarily for long flights, you'd be using railroads. So my grandfather was very much embedded in the operations of the railroad back in his working years. And we had like a lot of railroad calendars hanging in his house and things like that. He was a good guy.
So was Union Station near where that Irish quarter Irish Broadway
Yeah, well, yeah,
was right
because
there?
just a couple of blocks. Naughton Street, on the parallel street coming back this way. What is that called? There's two streets. One goes east, the other comes west. And Naughton Street is now called Nationwide Boulevard.
There's Chestnut.
Chestnut is the next block south. But in that whole area, they still call that the warehouse area.
Nielsen.
Nielsen goes north-south.
Oh.
But that was all railroads, and even far away, the orbit of Union Station, I mean, for us pedestrians to go in and hop on a train, that was real close to High Street. Behind that were all the train yards with myriad trains coming and going. So it'd be a lot like an air traffic control tower nowadays at an airport. You had to have somebody that was guiding the incoming and outgoing trains. Some of them were passenger trains, some of them were, freight trains. But yeah, so yeah, Irish Broadway, Naughton. It's funny because St. Patrick's sits on the block between the two, and I can't remember the name of the one that comes towards High. But the next street north then would be the beginning, because the entrance to the train station for pedestrians was the first place you could go into across the tracks. So it was south of Goodale. And the block on the west side of High Street, like where, that Italian restaurant that,
Buca di Beppo.
No, the one that, the Cameron Mitchell restaurant on the corner of High and Vine. What's that called?
Tony's or Florentine or what?
Martinis.
Martinis.
Oh, Martinis.
Yeah, so that whole block, for the most part, still there. And across, on the High Street, on the east side of High, was that entire arcade that you've seen pictures of, and that all it remains is the arch. But that was a block long, what do they call that? A frieze or a frieze? It's an Italian architectural term, because it's very ornate, crafted, clay or not sandstone. I think it was.
Not fresco.
Yes,
Frescoes.
yeah, that's what it is. It was gorgeous, and they tore it down.
So that arch that's in the Arena District,
Yeah.
that's an original.
Yeah, they've moved it twice.
Oh. For some reason, I thought it was sort of
It's
a
part of the
new
train
gimmick.
station, right?
No, it's not. We don't have a train station.
No, but
Old one.
it came
It was.
from, it was.
It was the passageway. People walked through that arch to get to the ticket office.
I never knew
Right.
that.
Right.
Actually, I was in there one time, maybe twice. It was sometime around it was probably after I got out of the Army. I know there was still a cigar shop operating out of it. But it stayed up vacant until I worked at UPS. And they snuck that one in. They called in the wrecking ball before anybody had a chance to get an injunction, which is almost the same thing they did with the Ohio Theater. That literally was a last-minute weekend injunction led by a citizens group like Leon Schottenstein and some people like that. They were going to tear down the Ohio Theater.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, this is institutional knowledge. So this is one of the reasons I'm doing this. Ego's got another reason, but the fact is, people really need to know that. Well, like even now, because it's Pride Month, and you'll see somebody my age posting on Pride about how grateful they are for this and for that, and they've been saying this for 2 generations, by the way, how this generation, whether it was in the 80s or 90s or this generation, they have absolutely no idea the lengths you had to go to hide the possibility that you might be gay. Even here in the city of Columbus, not talking about Lodi or someplace. All right, here we are.